Tatraivam sati kartaram atmanam kevalam tuyaha pashyati akrita buddhitvan nasa pashyati durmatihi. The 16th Shloka of the 18th chapter continues the topic of akartrutva anusandhana. We have seen that between 13 and 17 shlokas, Krishna takes up this foundational topic of the principle of non-doership. It is foundational because without akartrutva anusandhana, without renunciation of akartrutva, it is not possible to transform an action which is by design binding in nature into an action that is liberating in nature. Tatraivam sati kartaram atmanam kevalantu yaha pashyati akrita buddhitvan nasa pashyati durmatihi. Tatraivam, Bhagavan, it is due to Bhagavan's sanction and support. It is his sanction and support that enables a jiva to perform his kartrutva. That being so, tatraivam sati kartaram atmanam kevalantu yaha. If one sees oneself, if one sees the Atman as the only doer due to akrita buddhitva, pashyati akrita buddhitva, with buddhi not functioning properly. If one sees oneself as the only doer because of the non-functioning of one's buddhi, pashyati na pashyati. One sees, but verily one doesn't see. Durmatihi, durmati, mati, durmati. When mati is perverted, it is durmati. Misdirected consciousness. When the mind is misdirected, then it is durmati. Pashyati, na pashyati. One sees, but in reality, one doesn't see. Very interesting to notice here how Krishna talks about inability to see reality. Pashyati na pashyati. One who sees doesn't see, he says. How we see changes based on what we see. Very important to understand this. How we see changes based on what we see. Let's take the case of Arjuna in the Gita. Right at the beginning of the Gita, Arjuna refers to all the Kauravas who are on the opposite side in the battlefield. He refers to them as Dhartarashtrasya durbuddhehe priyachikirshavaha. Dhartarashtrasya, who's Dhartarashtra? Duryodhana. Dhartarashtrasya durbuddhehe priyachikirshavaha. This is how he refers to them, to the Kauravas. The allies of the evil-minded Duryodhana. The moment he goes to the middle of the battlefield, the same Arjuna refers to the same the Kauravas as Swajanaha. The Kauravas remain the same. Arjuna, who referred the Kauravas as the allies of the wicked Duryodhana, now looks at them and says they are Swajanaha, my people. Now what changed? How Arjuna saw changed based on what he saw. Initially, Arjuna's focus was on people who made the choice of siding with Duryodhana. He was seeing adharma. He was seeing people siding with adharma. Hence, he referred to the Kauravas, the enemy on the battlefield on the opposite side, as allies of the wicked Duryodhana. Later, when he moves to the center, to the middle of the battlefield, he looks not at, his focus changes. He starts seeing relationships. He starts seeing relationships. The bodily association dominates his consciousness. Arjuna, who saw adharma, now sees bodily relationships. How he saw changed based on what he saw. This is exactly what happens to us all the time. The power of seeing. Throughout the Gita, we see how Krishna highlights the power of seeing, because what we see changes the way how we see. It impacts how we see. Our eyes bring information many times, and sometimes it constructively changes our vision, and sometimes it destructively changes our vision. And therefore, it is important that we ensure what we see alone should not determine our vision. What we see alone with our eyes must not determine our vision. Extending this further, what we see with our eyes and the mind alone should also not determine our vision. Then what must determine our vision over and above what the eye sees, what the mind sees? It is the intelligence, jnana, knowledge, that must determine our vision. Unless intelligence is used, what we see alone is not enough for the right vision. When we see the surface of reality, most often we operate in our lives by just dealing with the surface of reality. We only see matter, surface of reality. We only see the physical body and nothing more. And therefore we only identify with matter and that which we can see with our eyes. When we only see at the level of the surface of reality and not beyond the surface of reality, life's journey is all about staying at the level of matter alone. The pursuit of what we do not see is the most important journey in life. Pursuit of what we do not see, what our eyes cannot see. It's not about just pursuing what our eyes can see. The pursuit of what the eyes cannot see, what we cannot see, is more important. Seeing with our physical eyes is very basic, is very preliminary. But seeing with the eyes of knowledge, not only seeing with the mind, seeing with the eyes of knowledge and making inferences based on right knowledge is more important. And when we make such inferences based on right knowledge, then those inferences are also further clarified and strengthened by scriptural revelation. If we only perceive, only deal with what we perceive, then we cannot pursue the right path. Now, when we are at crossroads, we have to see both the ways, the right way and the wrong way. If we do not see the right way, we have no other choice other than taking the wrong way. At crossroads, we have to see what is the right way, what is the wrong way, and then we choose the right way. But if we only see the wrong way, we will end up going on the wrong way all the time. In life's journey, if we don't see the spiritual side and we only see the material side all the way, we only journey on the material path all the time. We can pursue only what we can perceive. We cannot pursue what we do not perceive. This is as simple as that. So therefore, perceiving our spiritual side, perceiving spiritual reality is critical in life's journey. And we may ask, it is not clear, it is not easy to perceive spiritual reality just like how we can easily perceive material reality. True. Perceiving spiritual reality and having the same clarity as perceiving material reality is a process. And this process, we have to sustain, persevere. And over a period of time, our clarity in perceiving spiritual reality increases. There is no shortcut here. We have to continue to pursue what we don't easily perceive. This is the sadhana. Now, Krishna clearly says we need to see the Atman as one amongst the 5 causal factors. If we have to practice the principle of non-doership, we need to see the Atman as one amongst the 5 causal factors. Yes, very well, it's understood. We need to see the Atman as one amongst the 5 causal factors. But first we need to see the Atman. Then comes the step of recognizing it as one amongst the 5 factors. We don't even see the Atman. So seeing the Atman, how do I see the Atman? That's where the whole Gita journey begins. If we get our Pashya wrong, we'll be tied up by Pashya of samsara. Pashya, seeing. Pashya means noose. Yamapashya. We have heard about this word. Pashya is noose made out of a rope. If we get our Pashya wrong, we end up being tied by Pashya of samsara. We are stuck. That is the reason why this topic of seeing is so very central, integral to Gita. Now, Krishna, the word pashyati, seeing, darshana, the right vision. We see how throughout the Gita, Arjuna's vision keeps evolving. Krishna tries to help us evolve our vision. Spiritual progress is all about progress in our quote-unquote seeing. Spiritual progress is all about progress in our seeing. We need to necessarily start not just seeing with our physical eyes, but we need to start seeing with the eyes of knowledge. So that is the reason why right at the beginning, Krishna talks about the importance of seeing, cultivating, seeing reality as it is. Ascharyavat pashyati kaschidena, ascharyavat vadati tathaiva chanya, ascharyavat chainam annashrunoti, shrutvaapyenam vedana chaiva kaschid. Right in the second chapter, Krishna says, ascharyavat pashyati kaschidena. Some see the Atman as ascharya, as a wonder, as amazing. Some see the Atman as Atman as amazing. Some describe it as amazing. Some hear about it as amazing. Some, even after hearing about it, still do not understand anything about it. They do not understand the eternal, never changing characteristic of the Atman, which is distinct and different from the body. The beauty of the shloka is, Ascharyavat can be used as an adjective for the Atman. It can also be used as an adjective for the seer. Some amazing people see the Atman. Some amazing people describe the Atman. Some amazing people hear about the Atman. And some people, in spite of listening about it, do not understand anything about it. They too are amazing. Because the power of misidentification is very amazing. So therefore, Krishna talks about the importance of seeing, pashyati. Most often, what happens is our self-understanding is very, very limited to the surface reality. It is important to know that self-understanding is the integral part of our total understanding. Just like how most often when we see a building, our attention only goes to the superstructure of the building. How often does our attention go to the foundation? Rarely, maybe never. Similarly, our attention never goes to the inner world, the understanding of the self, to know that there is an hierarchy that is all working together. There is something called a physical body. Then there are indriyas, there is manas, there is prana, there is buddhi. Then there is Atman. All this hierarchy working together to perform every action. Now, it is okay to ignore the foundation and only look at the superstructure of the building in normal times. But when there is an earthquake, it is not the superstructure that matters. It is the foundation that ensures that the building stays stable. Similarly, it is during the times of adversity, it is our self-understanding, the knowledge of our own nature that helps us to stay stable. And that is the reason why Krishna says, Ascharyavat pashyati kaschidenam. Amazing people see the Atman because they know the Atman, and people see Atman as amazing. It is amazing, it's a wonder, because it cannot be perceived with our physical eyes, but what is important is to understand that when we see, we must know, more important than seeing is to know who is the seer. How often do we contemplate this? We are seeing all the time. What we see is important, but more important is to know who is seeing. There is a seer inside. When we observe, what is important is not what is observed. The observer, the indwelling Atman, who is the seer, who is this observer. And to see the observer, the journey of the Gita started off with the investigation, asking this question. And soon, we realize how, in this investigation, the investigator is the investigated. We soon realize that. That's the beauty of this investigation, right? The investigator is the investigated. And that is why it is Ascharya. Now, we see throughout the Gita, the seeing keeps evolving. The seeing keeps evolving, keeps progressing, keeps changing. With the changing perspective, with the expanding perspective, our seeing also keeps evolving. In the 3rd chapter of the Gita, Krishna declares, Karmanaivahi samsiddhim astitha janakadayaha lokasangrahamevapi sampashyan kartumarhasi. Sampashyan kartumarhasi. Karmanaivahi samsiddhim astitha janakadayaha. In the context of giving us the importance of Karma Yoga as to why actions should not be renounced, must be performed. Even the great rulers like Janaka have reached the state of samsiddhi. The state of samsiddhi by continuing to perform their duties, not by renouncing actions. Janaka was a great jnani, but he did not renounce actions. He continued to perform his duties by setting an example. Samsiddhi is a state of enlightened vision. And this enlightened vision is a result of two things: intellectual illumination and mental redirection. Intellectual illumination. Our intellect has to be illumined so that it can reveal the Atman. If the buddhi is not illumined, then it cannot reveal the Atman within. The buddhi has to be illumined. And at the same time, also mental redirection. The mind has to be redirected. By design, it is directed outside towards the world of matter. The redirection has to happen. The mind has to be redirected towards the Atman and eventually towards the Paramatman. Karmanaiva hi samsiddhim astitha janakadayah loka sangrahamevapi sampashyan kartumarhasi. Sampashyan, seeing very well. Sampashyan, seeing very well what? Seeing very well that the order in this universe depends on each and every one of us performing our duties. We need to perform every action as a duty, every karma as a dharma, in order to ensure harmony. Without performing the duties, without karma being performed as dharma, there cannot be harmony. And that is the reason why even great rulers like Janaka led by example, by showing that one needs to continue to perform actions based on the principle of Kartrutva Tyaga. By the renunciation, threefold renunciation, continue to perform the duty, lead by example. Sampashyan kartumarhasi. Now, going beyond the third chapter, the seeing further evolves. Ekam sankhyam cha yogam cha yaha pashyati sapashyati. The fifth chapter, Krishna now talks about ekam. He's talking about how divergent paths converge on one single goal. Ekam sankyam cha yogam cha yaha pashyati sapashyati vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihastini shunichaiva swapake cha panditaha samadarshinaha. Now here Krishna talks about seeing everything as equal. Vision of equality. Now the seeing now is evolving. Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihastini shunichaiva swapakesha panditaha samadarshinaha. This is very popular shloka. Establishes that the sameness within each and every living entity. Vidya vinaya sampanne, the one who is endowed with knowledge and humility. Brahmane, a brahmana. Gavihastini shunichaiva swapakecha. Gavi, hastini, an elephant, a horse, a dog eater, they are all equal. In the sense, it's the same Atman within each and every living entity. One needs to develop that samadarshana, seeing equality of all. But now, interestingly, Krishna brings this topic of samadarshana in the context of Arjuna needing to perform his duty. Now, what is the relevance of samadarshana on the battlefield? The same question applies to us as well. Samadarshana, how does it apply in performing our duties? Now take the case of Arjuna. Now Arjuna on the battlefield must actually see the other side not as equals, as different. He has to see that he is on the side of the virtuous and the others are on the side of vicious. If it is if equality of vision here, then Arjuna has no case to fight. So, what is the relevance of samadarshana here? The relevance of samadarshana here is we need to look at what was Arjuna's problem. Arjuna looked at Arjuna as a Kshatriya as a duty. He has to stand up and fight against the aggressors who are disturbing the order in the society. Now, Arjuna sees those aggressors, sees those who are on the path of adharma, and sees them as his relatives as well. And it is his misidentification and it is misplaced love and affection which is preventing him from engaging in performing his duty. For a moment, let's ask this question. If those on the other side of the battlefield were not his relatives, would he have hesitated in fighting the war? Certainly not. So what was it that was preventing Arjuna in performing his duty? It is his attachment. It is his bodily association, which is clouding. It is clouding his vision. So Samadarshana that Krishna introduces in the 5th chapter is essentially to say Samadarshana should help one to perform one's duty. This unclouding of the mind has to happen. Otherwise, body identification is so very strong, that bodily relationships are so very strong, the attachment is so very strong that one cannot perform one's duty. So we see how seeing now evolves further in the 5th chapter. And then when we come to 6th chapter, the seeing further evolves. Yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sachamena pranashyati. This is where towards the end of 6th chapter, Krishna is slowly transforming Arjuna. Now, till then he was only talking a lot about Arjuna and Arjuna's duty. Now slowly he is bringing in the importance of moving further. Now he is starting to talk about, this is the foundation for the next 7 chapters. Bhakti and knowing Krishna. Krishna here, Yomam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mayi pashyati. The one who sees me in everything and sees everything in me, tasyaham na pranashyami sachamena pranashyati. Such a person is never lost to me, and I am never lost to him. Both are applicable. Now here, the seeing gets further refined. It gets further evolved. What is the seeing here? Seeing Krishna in everything, in everyone. And seeing everyone in Krishna. What is the seeing that Krishna is talking about? Krishna is talking about seeing the reality. Seeing that Krishna is the source, the shelter, the sustenance, and the very summit. Everything, seeing that this entire universe is connected with him, is never disconnected, is dependent on him, is never separated, is inseparable, is completely dependent on him for everything and has no existence without him. Seeing the world and seeing the world maker through the world. Now the seeing becomes very comprehensive. This seeing is able to see Krishna everywhere, and also seeing that is beyond what we can see. Seeing is immanence, seeing is transcendence. And then from that seeing, the seeing in the Gita further evolves. And there we see in the 13th chapter, Prakritevacha karmani kriyamanani sarvasaha yaha pashyati tathatmanam akartaram sa pashyati. Prakritevacha karmani kriyamanani sarvasaha. Prakritevacha karmani, all actions are being done by Prakriti. All actions are being done, carried out by the body. Prakritevacha karmani kriyamanani sarvasaha. Now, it is not just they are being done by the body, it is being done because of the Atman's association with the body. Yaha pashyati tathatmanam akartaram sa pashyati. Now what is the seeing that Krishna is talking about? Seeing that it is a teamwork that is happening. Seeing the entire hierarchy functioning. Able to see, seeing that the body, the indriyas, the prana, the mind, and the intellect all working together with the Atman as a team. And therefore, when we see this functioning of everything that is involved as parts in what is called a human being, akartaram sapashyati, then it becomes very clear that the soul is not the sole doer. The soul is not the sole doer. It becomes very clear. This seeing, the moment one sees that it is a team game, then where is the where is this confusion that it is the individual who does everything? So thus, the seeing now further evolves, and with more and more knowledge, with expansion of the perspective, one is able to now see reality in action. And then comes the beautiful shloka in the 15th chapter. Utkramantam sthitham vapi bhunjanam va gunanvitam vimoodaha nanupashyanti pashyanti jnana chakshushaha. The pashyati, the seeing, we see how throughout the Gita, we see how it is evolving. Utkramantam sthitham vapi bhunjanam va gunanvitam. Utkramantam, exit. Sthitham, staying, indwelling. Bhunjanam va gunanvitam, experiencing the gunas of Prakriti. Vimudha nanupashyanti. The Vimudha, one who is akrita buddhitvan. This is the 18th shloka. Akrita buddhitva. Vimudha. One's buddhi is not functioning the way it should. Clouded buddhi. If the buddhi is not revealing, then one cannot see properly. The seeing is colored. Vimudha nanupashyanti. The Vimudha, the one whose buddhi is not functioning properly, does not realize that the Atman exits the body. The Atman enters the body, takes the body. The Atman indwells, and the Atman also experiences the gunas of Prakriti through the body, which is also a product of Prakriti. Vimudha nanu pashyanti. Pashyanti jnana chakshushaha. Pashyanti jnana. With jnana chakshusha, with the eyes of knowledge, one starts to see this. One starts to see how the Atman takes a new body at the time of birth, and it is the indweller in the body, and it is not only the indweller, it is the experiencer, and while it is not the only doer, it is the only experiencer. This is, we always need to keep highlighting this fact. It is not the only doer, but it is the only experiencer. So which means accountability is even more for the Atman. Responsibility is even more. So with the eyes of knowledge, then we see the eye. The eye of knowledge helps us to see the eye, but that is not enough. That is not enough. Why it is not enough? With the eye of knowledge, we see the eye, but the scope of seeing has to now expand and increase until we not only see the eye. No, initially when we see the eye may be the capital eye. That eye slowly has to start becoming a normal eye, not a capital eye. And as the scope of seeing increases, we not only see the eye, we also need to see the lotus-eyed. The lotus-eyed, whose eyes see and oversee everything. This is the ultimate seeing. This is the ultimate seeing. Ultimate seeing is seeing transforms into knowing. Yovam yevam asammudaha janati purushottamam sa sarvavid bhajati mam sarvabhavena bharata. What a powerful shloka. When the seeing transforms into knowing, and when the scope of seeing increases and we start to see the small eye and the lotus-eyed who is overseeing this eye. Yoma yevam asammudaha janati purushottamam. Janati. Then we know the Purushottama. Not know about. No, there was this question asked about what is the difference between knowing about and knowing. Knowing about is collection of information. Knowing is experiencing him. When the seeing becomes knowing and experiencing, that seeing becomes a lot more fulfilling. That is the real seeing. Because seeing, inferring, knowing, experiencing, realizing, and ultimately seeing again. Because the last seeing is seeing with spiritual eyes, Divya Chakshu. That's the state of moksha. We start with Mokṣha Chakshu, then we move to Jnana Chakshu, and eventually, Krishna's grace, we get Divya Chakshu. That's the progression. That's the process. Yomam evam asammudaha janati purushottamam. Janati, the one who knows the Purushottama. Then we see him. Then we see that he is very much there. We see his proximity. We see his presence. We do not miss out his presence. Otherwise, we are searching. Where is he? Where is he? The moment we start seeing him and knowing him, we feel his proximity. We feel his presence. And when that experiencing happens, sa sarvavid bhajati mam sarvabhavena bharata, knowing him as the ultimate karta, that seeing and experiencing him also will make us realize that he is the ultimate karta. Sarvavid bhajati mam sarvabhavena bharata. Serving him comes natural to us with loving devotion. There is no question asked anymore. Question as to why should I serve him? Why should I do bhakti? Why should I worship him? All those questions dissolve. It becomes natural to us that it is natural for us to serve him and love him. Sarvavid bhajati mam sarvabhavena bharata. So therefore, in that state, there is no akrita buddhi, there is no durmati, there is only sumati, and there is krita buddhi. Krita buddhi is when buddhi is functioning properly. When one sees him, clearly, which means one is endowed with krita buddhi, where buddhi is functioning, is revealing completely. It is not concealing, it is revealing. And it is sumati. Mati is directed properly, directed towards the Paramatma completely. Tatraivam sati kattaram atmanam kevalantu yaha pashyati akrita buddhitvan nasa pashyati durmatihi. Now here Krishna once conclusively defines akartritva anusandhana here. Akartritva, non-doership, is not equal to I am not the doer. It is not contemplating. Akartritva anusandhana, contemplation on non-doership, is not about contemplating that I am the doer. Akartritva anusandhana, based on this shloka, becomes very clear to us. It is illumined contemplation based on the knowledge that dispels two illusions. What are the two illusions? The first illusion, that I am an independent karta. I am an independent karta who can do actions without the support of the Sarva Niyanta, Bhagavan. That's the first illusion. The first illusion is I can control everything. My action is completely within my control. I am independent and I don't need any support. This is an illusion. The first is dispelling the darkness of this illusion. Second illusion, that I am the only doer, not realizing that there are several other causal factors. Both these illusions are completely dispelled with the knowledge. So that illumined contemplation of non-doership, that I am not the sole doer, I am not the complete non-doer, and the ultimate karta is Krishna, and there are several other causal factors that go into making every action. That is akartritva anusandhana. If for that akartritva anusandhana to take place, one needs to have krita buddhi and sumati. If the mati is not properly directed and if the buddhi is not properly functioning, then one would start believing the myth that one is the only doer. So Krishna here clarifies with the 16th shloka the principle of akartritva anusandhana. One more shloka to go, 17th, which concludes on this topic. And then after that, Krishna will move on to the next stage of taking every action and analyzing it, which is the analysis of all the components that go into not only start of the action, fruition of an action. A very scientific and detailed analysis of an action, which we will take up after the 17th shloka. Until then, let's continue to contemplate on seeing and reflect on how we see and what we see. Very important. We need to keep questioning how we see based on what we see. what we see is very important. The power of seeing with the eye and seeing with the eye plus the mind, both are important. And this is where the knowledge of the Shastras and the eyes of knowledge will bring about a sea change in our seeing. So reflect on how seeing evolves throughout the Gita and how the darshana of Arjuna expands from seeing only at the level of surface reality to eventually seeing Paramatma. That is the journey that we need to keep reflecting on. Sarvam Sakshana Cost.